ಏನಾಯ್ತು ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಎಷ್ಟು ದಿವಸ ಆಯ್ತು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ತಾನೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ ಬೋಪಿಂಗ್ just having burning sensation, that's all. Yeah, both. And you feel it, no, at the back of your throat. Okay, okay. Okay, okay. Is your gotten yourself checked that time or anything, or any weakness? Nothing. Are you sleeping on your left side only, or you
Morning, everybody. We are on the dot at 11. I hope my screen as well as my voice is clear. I need one of you to unmute and tell me, is my voice and screen clear?
Good morning, sir. Yes, sir, it's clear.
Is my screen and voice clear, please?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Yeah. Now, this is still an unfolding pandemic. Cases come down when there's a rigid, strict lockdown, and when things are relaxed, it tends to flare up. It is scourging across the world. Nobody seems to have a clue. People are still dying like anything, and the new Delta variant is spreading. So in that scenario, it is high time we have a very clear idea of what is happening, what can be done to preempt a terrible fatality, and what precautions and what is the potential prognosis. Now, all this would not have been possible without the support of the management, and it is under the management's directive that this is being conducted. I'm not aware of such a awareness program. Not only this, but a whole host of other things will happen. And as a consequence, the management also would like to know your feedback. So as a consequence, I would expect each one of you to, in detail, write a feedback with your name, which department, which year. Thank profusely the management first, and the rest of the hierarchy, including the dean and others in the administrative cadre, and send it to me. Now, if you have any suggestions, we will incorporate. What you're about to witness are positive and constructive criticisms as well from a variety of various. I've been doing this for various colleges and various organizations. So as a consequence, what you're about to witness is the feedback of several others, and what you suggest will be, if possible, incorporated in further presentations as well. Now, you have absolute liberty to unmute your mic and ask a question if you need to clarify, but at the end of it also, you can talk to me. But at the outset, all these programs are only happening because of the earlier feedback. So it's very clear, please. Number one, when a program is organized for a target audience, it is expected that everybody will be present. If you are not there and some restrictive factors are there, I need you to come and report to me and let me know what is the problem. When a program for postgrads is being organized, especially now we are encompassing both medical and dental, I would expect every single postgraduate to be here on this platform. If you're not there, kindly come and meet me so that we have an idea. So let us therefore look at what is happening and what can be done to prevent those who are coming in. Kindly mute your mic so that we don't have a disturbance as the program. Okay, so let us proceed, and whoever who's logging in, make sure that your mic is muted so that we don't have a disturbance. Now, let's have a look at what is really happening. Look at that picture. The world across, maybe 4 or 5 islands are exempt, but the world across is suffering. And look at the dark shades across, how much they are sort of inveigled into the scourge which is afflicting mankind. Now, 168 million cases around the world, more than 3 million deaths. Nobody seems to have still an answer as to what's happening. Let us just take 2 countries. The United States, 32 million cases. India, 27. What is the gap? So which means irrespective of wealth or organization or knowledge or caliber or academic prowess, nothing seems to stop this. A highly advanced country, the United States, and look at India, 27 million cases here as well. Kindly mute your mic so that we do not have a disturbance. Now, look at in India, there is 27 million cases confirmed. And look at the number of deaths, more than 300,000 deaths. There is still some disturbance, please. I request again, as you comment, to kindly mute your mic so we do not have any disturbance at all. Now, that is the terrible picture which is happening. 300,000 deaths which have happened, 27 million cases. What is really happening? So, Why can't we exactly look into the virus dynamics and take preemptive measures? Look at let us start from the very beginning. How does the virus, a tiny little thing, how does it enter the human body? Specifically, be clear, only through the eyes, ears, nose, throat, full stop. It does not enter through the rest of the body. And in that regard, wearing a total body PPE does not make much of a sense. What you need to really be careful about is these points of entry. The ear, if there is an entry route of a perforation. Otherwise, the eardrum almost completely seals off the ear. So as a consequence, eyes, ears, nose, and throat. And in that regard, we say wear a mask. But what sort of mask do people wear? I've seen just you stand next to a medical shop, if the common fellow come and ask, on the 10 rupee mask for it, 20 rupee, you are trying to protect your own life. Let me make it very clear, because I've been looking into this. Who should be focusing on this? Doctors, especially my area. You should be wearing not less than a 5-layer mask. What I'm wearing still is inadequate. But where should the root of the nose 1 inch behind the chin from the tragus on one side to the other side? That is the extent of the mask. And it should be 5-layer. In that, since that is not available quite often, we say wear a double mask. That's not enough. It has to be a 5-layer mask with what is called an SSMS antiviral filter incorporated within. So that is, now nevertheless, even if you're wearing an extensive mask like this, look at the small little gap. If a person who is viral positive, millions of viruses are being poured out through the nose. Each time the person breathes, the virus is multiplying like anything inside his lungs and being poured into the atmosphere. And as a consequence, what does the virus do? It just wants to catch another human and multiply again. So in that regard, look at this gap between the mask and the upper part of the face. There is a tiny gap here. Look at, if you were wearing a surgical mask, there is a huge gap here. And quite often, all that does not make, has anybody looked into these mask dynamics and then taken a proactive, everybody wants to sell masks, everybody wants to sort of bring it quickly into that. One must look into the mask dynamics and address these issues, which is not being addressed at all.
It's okay.
Kindly mute your mic, please. Maybe I'll put a fine on those whose mics are disturbing. So therefore, that, has anybody undertaken, a health authority or a medical establishment looked into these things? No, you just say wear a mask. Now, even if it is a 3-layer, what did Robert Redford, the CDC, former CDC director, said? The only thing that protects me is a thick cotton mask. You know, if a CDC director can say like that, now is that enough? No, I said the gap between the eye, between the mask and the face, that needs to be addressed. And as a consequence, you need to wear this face shield, polycarbonate face shield. I do not have any financial interest in any of these companies. However, this is something which I found to be reasonably effective. You also have what is called a flip shield, which means if you're in a separate room and you're reasonably safe, you can flip this up. Otherwise, you tend to remove the entire headgear and then you can have a coffee and have your food or whatever. So you need to have a flip face shield which completely envelops the face. Nevertheless, still we understand there is a gap below. You travel on the Indigo air flight and they give a face shield that juts out like that. What is the meaning? Because there's a huge gap underneath through which, if you're bathed in viruses, which is why, irrespective, the other day somebody sort of went to Bangalore for a flight to the United States. Flight got cancelled, spent some time in the airport, came back and was found to be positive. And that, of course, from the house, it spread to the elders and they suffered terribly. So you got to protect yourself. You got to protect others in the house as well. So it's got to be a complete face enveloping shield like this and anchored to the side. So although nevertheless this is airtight, there's a small little gap that needs to be addressed as well. But if you look at this, there is a gap below. If you see, if you're bathed in virus, imagine millions of viruses around here. This can easily enter. You see, so you got to address these issues. You are expected. How many people ever wear a face shield on top of a mask? Precious few. So look at that. You got to be wearing a mask. It's not got to be angled in this fashion because there's too much of a gap at that point. It has to be horizontally like that, and it has to go right up to the ear. That's got to be the extent of the face shield. Look into these dynamics. Make sure it is a 5-layer thick cotton mask plus a face shield, and that's how it should be. But nevertheless, is there a gap below? Is there a gap at the side? I tried to address that by now. Look at the huge gap behind. I try to address that by enveloping myself inside a shawl, trying to address these issues. There are people who are not trying to do that, but all that is terrible. I was suffocated and miserable, and I could not sustain this beyond a point of time. If you have a shawl like that, maybe sort of a little, it should be on top. Maybe all these gaps. However, nevertheless, you are vulnerable, and therefore it's up to you to take that precaution and care. Now, instead of this, is there any other option? Yes. Look at this thing called Air, the new company which has come out, and this is a tightly airtight bubble. There's no gap at all. Airtight at the neck. There is, of course, a filter here. It is powered, and it makes sure that only sterile air is being pumped into this space. And because it is, you might wonder, and what is the advantage in this regard is that your mouth is open. So those who are handicapped and required to see the mouth for lip reading, or those who are hearing handicapped, for them it's an advantage. Will they allow you this on a flight? Certainly not, because on a flight it is very clear that you need to be wearing a mask. So you've got to be wearing a mask. On top of that, only if you are completely enveloped in an airtight bubble, then only then are you 100% safe. Today, it's a highly dangerous environment. Anybody can get infected. How many people are dying? So look at a little bit about the dynamics. It covers this acrylic dome, as you see here, covers the mouth, nose, eyes, but allows a full facial view and a wide range of sight. It just comes, and of course, the people are picking it up, and really, not a single one who is wearing this sort of a bubble helmet has got infected ever. That shows the veracity of the product. Now, a little bit, because as doctors, wherever you go, people will trust this lab reports, and you must reasonably be conversant with the lab reports. What is the major thing that you must look at? Lactate dehydrogenase 210. This is a little expanded beyond a little upper limit. But the moment lactate dehydrogenase is increasing, rest, you have to know that this patient is deteriorating. Shortly, there will be a pulmonary shutdown. He most certainly will go into the ICU. Now, when there's a terrible inflammation happening across the body, the C-reactive protein starts again shooting up, the range being 30 to 50. What is the major problem concerning this virus infection? Blood starts clotting. And when blood clots and then fragments, then what goes up? D-dimer. So the moment you find D-dimer going up, instantly you must intervene and start a blood thinning product. We'll go into that later. Interleukin 6. These are the things that bring in a cytokine storm. Interleukin 6 starts shooting up. But all these are parameters. Please know the normal ranges. When you're given a report, you should not be in a position to again go back and refer the ranges. Please know interleukin 6 up to 6. Interleukin 6. So that when you connect things like that, it is easier for you to remember. Ferritin up to 300. But ferritin starts increasing. But what is of far greater concern is LDH. Lactate dehydrogenase. The first thing when you get a report is look at LDH. Is it more than 210? Of course, here they have shown 280. But beyond 300, death is waiting at the door. And if the D-dimer is increasing, suddenly they can fall down dead. That is perhaps, the medical student in a neighboring college, although he was positive and asymptomatic when he was talking with his contemporaries in the ward, suddenly he dropped down dead. We should have realized what could preempt that fatality when corona strikes. So a bit about these things you must know, and that is about interleukin 6. It is highly predictive of in-hospital death. Patient's relative will ask you, what is the paid doctor? And if interleukin 6 is going up, then you better say that you got it's a high risk case, and it is only rarely that they can come out of it. What is the cutoff limit? 37.6 picogram per milliliter. Know about the upper limit of normalcy. Now, look at lactate dehydrogenase. As I said, 210. The moment it is going up, these are patients who are deteriorating, and instantly you must move in and save lives. How many people are dying, and how many doctors are dead in India alone? And on top of that, how many parents of medical students have passed away, leaving them as orphans? It is such a tragedy that is happening. Now, look at C-reactive protein should be less than 8, and suddenly when it starts shooting up, it means the body is having a terrible inflammatory reaction across. Now, in one study, we found ferritin to start increasing, and in that, what is the range? 291, again, nanogram per milliliter. So, 219 we say, but the upper limit, as you see here, 336 milligram per liters. But the prime thing again that you look at is lactate dehydrogenase. If it is more than 210, you got to inform that this patient is deteriorating, and we are trying a level best. A D dimer should be not be seen at all in the blood, but if the D dimer is present, that means the blood clotting process has started, and a positive D dimer of more than 0.5 is a predictor that terrible things are about to happen. So we leave the blood parameters. What are the parameters? D dimer, lactate dehydrogenase, ferritin, interleukin 6. These are things should be at your fingertips. Now, large majority of patients will get a corona and come out of it. How? Based on their own immunity. And what governs immunity? Immunity, vaccines were my research thesis topics. I got a gold medal, and that has been the cornerstone of my practice for the last 3 decades. It is something that you should be focusing in clinical practice, because to a large extent, why do people become sick when the immune system is low? Why do people get a cancer? Again, when the immune surveillance mechanism is not adequate. But however, this is something that we are exposed in medical colleges to the very least extent. How many classes on immunology do we really have? Earlier those days, we had maybe 2 or 3 or 4 classes. But immunity is the basis of contemporary medical practice, which should be actively focused on. Now, what are the factors that govern? When I get queries from across India based on my first interview, across India, people ask me, now that it is spreading, what precaution can you take? Now, I have found that if you vastly enhance the immune system and give a robust immune system to a patient, to a large extent, many of the infections itself will not happen. What governs it? If you frequently sip hot water, at least once a day after lunch, that usually is the tradition when you go to a hotel, they give you, like in Kerala, some of these hotels, they give you hot jeera water, or they call it karigali, pink thing. But sips of hot water increases your body temperature and prevents viral multiplication. Now, the Indian system, I always say, make yourself a little immunologically strong by having a quarter teaspoon of turmeric in a glass of milk. That certainly will boost your immune system. But what is far beyond that? There are 4 things that govern immunity. Please know very clearly. What are they? Number 1, amino acid. Number 2, vitamin C. 3, iron. 4, zinc. And lastly, prebiotics. Today, we know that it is the microbiome that has a major role in diseases, and a faulty microbiome has been thought to be the causative factor for a large number of illnesses, which people are now waking up to. So let us have a look. I am writing the trade names here so that you will immediately, sometime medical shop fellows will give you substitute drugs where there is no correlation, because they just want their products to move. So as a consequence, I'm very specific. What are the products available in the market? One is aspirin port, the others are alamine and health. Okay, is there US white is there? And I have written the drugs which I routinely prescribe, not that you need to adhere to it, but these are things that happen. Amino acids in the morning, ascorbate at night, iron and zinc at night. Why should you combine both at night? You certainly know that ascorbate augments iron absorption. Now, Why do we know this? Humans are mutants. We humans have mutated in such a way glucosidase enzyme is blocked. Humans cannot synthesize vitamin C. Why don't you see this amount of suffering in animals? They synthesize vitamin C to the extent of 3 to 4,000 milligrams. Who suggested vitamin C to enhance health? Linus Pauling, double Nobel laureate. And as a consequence, the 6 medical colleges in Mangalore, each college would have about 1,000 beds, 6,000 beds, mostly full during a peak time. That reflects the sad state of the health of the society itself. Now, apart from this, I said you must have a prebiotic. A prebiotic requires a probiotic to survive. And therefore, at least once a week, make sure that the microbiome is balanced. One of the capsules that I write is bifidobacter. So let me just focus again. Amino acids, vitamin C, iron, zinc, these to be taken daily, and this to be taken once. When if you do that to a large extent, you are protected. Now, how long should you take? Well, the body absorbs, it retains in the body for about 48 hours time, and it's all gone. So you need to be continuously. There are several factors that restrict its absorption, even from the natural food. So therefore, I insist that as long as you're taking this, you will be protected. I have tell people so far who have taken this protective has preempted the possibility of infection, even though they are colleagues or in the house, many people have got infected, but those who are taking this combination have not become positive so far. So that is prevention. Is that all that is required? No, your mind, if you're in stress, especially if you're in distress, that depresses the immune system. So always in this terrible time when jobs are getting lost and you're working at home, and there is some amount of depression happening across, but then be positive, be strong. If you're weak, then your immunity declines. That is where when we get what is called an exam fever. How many students become sick during exam time because they're not prepared well and there's a lot of stress. We don't know whether they will pass or fail. And that's the time when so many students manifest a fever. Why only fever during exam time? When the immune system is depressed, then that is when the body becomes vulnerable. So in your mind, be strong, because if you were to evaluate cancer patients, every single cancer patient, if you very carefully were to evaluate, there'll be some point of depression, declining their immune system, making the possible the cancer surveillance defunct and faulty, and they become susceptible to cancers as well. So therefore, be strong in your mind. And I said, daily, so hot water, that will keep you healthy and strong. Now, apart from that, zinc, in the beginning, of course, during my thesis work, because immunology was my forte, and we used to very, very heavy focus on zinc. And somebody still kindly mute your mics, please. Now, zinc is the backbone of the immune system. The first is iron, the second is zinc. Nevertheless, a few facts you must know. Number one, the angiotensin converting enzyme type 2, through which the virus attaches to these receptors and gains access to the body. Number two, the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, also called replicase, by which the virus multiplies in the human body. Number three, when the body finds that it cannot sustain anymore and wants to shut itself down, why? The body has some sort of a self-destructive tendency to perhaps save the rest of the community, like a harakiri in Japan it is called, and the body instigates what is called a cytokine storm. Now, all of this, the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, the angiotensin converting enzyme, the cytokine storm, all of this are blocked by zinc, which is why suddenly zinc exploded in the market and everybody started taking a zinc supplement. Now, there have been arguments that zinc perhaps causes the fungus to come in and mucormycosis. I absolutely will disagree. That's not the thing. That is about zinc. Kindly mute your mics. Now, at the beginning, we said this had preventive role, and everybody started taking hydroxychloroquine or even as a therapeutic. But please know very clearly, hydroxychloroquine lengthens the QT interval. That if the QT interval is already a bit longer, and then on top of that, you give hydroxychloroquine, suddenly the heart will stop because we cannot sustain that to lengthen the QT interval. And how many people have died? Doctors have died thinking that they will protect themselves from corona by taking hydroxychloroquine, and that has hit the heart and they have died. Is there anything that you can do? Yes. If you give omega-3, arachidonic acid, icosapentaenoic, and docosahexaenoic acid, if you give that to a large extent, what happens is it protects this electrical wiring of the heart called the bundle of His, and that will not happen. However, nevertheless, too many deaths and problems. As a consequence, this has got withdrawn. Now, let us therefore look, by chance you get corona, how many medical students, postgraduates, doctors, specialists have got corona, and how many people have died? That simply should not have happened. Why? Let us have a look at the first phase treatment. When before that, the moment you have a slight body ache or a slight nasal congestion, one sneeze or heaviness or slight fever, you have initially a small little window period. You have examined a patient, and within a few minutes, you will find a tickle in your throat. You will find a slight amount of sluggishness. That means, like in a city, terrorists have entered. Like in Mumbai, it happened. Half a dozen terrorists have entered. You know, what can you do? Frequently sip hot water until you start sweating. If you do that, you have to sip water, hot water, until you start sweating. What does that mean? The body temperature is increased by 1 degree. When the body finds that the temperature is unnecessarily and artificially elevated, the body tries to bring it down. How does it bring it down? By this sweating. Now, if that happens, viral replication at increased more than 98.4 to 100.4 viral replication, which is why by the moment you have corona, within few hours, you start getting a fever, which means the body is trying to abort it by making a fever. You need not wait for that point of time. You can increase your own body temperature by frequently sipping hot water. And if you do that, you will find within half an hour, 1 hour, you have come out of it. You have a small window period. If you do not do that, that means these terrorists, the police fellows are incompettent. There are no police people, or they have nothing to protect themselves, or the only thing that they have is a lathi. Nothing you can do because the terrorists are fully armed. And especially you see this movie, Wesley Snipes, it's like long daggers and arrows, highly sharpened. It will just cleave and gain access. So therefore, what should be the first line? You need to stop this virus from multiplying. Let's have a look as to what you can do. Now, the first treatment, this brilliant doctor, we hats off to him. These are people who are God's gift to mankind. If you have an innovative thought process and discover a cure when none exists, we have to deify them, place them in the highest platform, and give them the due recognition that they so richly deserve. Now, we'll see who discovered this, but ivermectin absolutely blocks virus multiplication of the coronavirus. Next, doxycycline, 100 milligram. Absolutely, it is repurposed now as an antiviral drug. Because now we have not focused on it, it is still active against a host of bacteria. But this, in tandem with ivermectin, absolutely prevents viral replication. So if you were to do that, but look at this Dr. DeMello, if you were to do that, by the third day, patients are asymptomatic. By the fifth day, they are negative. I can't understand when this wonderful combination is available. We cannot be talking about 2,000, 3,000 deaths. That only shows our lack of knowledge and our lack of willingness to implement this, and the absence of a clear, targeted, directed focus. Now, come back again. We now know that there is a wonder drug that will, what is the major problem? The moment the virus multiplies in your throat and then starts going into the lung and to the sinuses, the body counters it by throwing out a huge amount of mucus, which contains lysozymes. And then the mucus becomes so thick that it cannot be expressed out of the sinuses or the lungs. What can you do to bring it out and mucolite it, to dissolve it and bring it out? This wonderful mucolytic drug. But today we know it also has an antiviral property and it arrests viral multiplication. That is N-acetylcysteine, 600 milligram, twice a day. So apart from that, what is a major problem now? It causes a hypercoagulability state. As a consequence, blood starts clotting. And where does it clot? In the brain, causing a stroke, or the lungs having a shutdown, or in the intestine, causing gangrene. What a terrible tragedy. So now that we know that this is happening, from day one onwards, patient should be on aspirin. Well, this perhaps, it is so sad that the medical student, third day in the ward, suddenly he dropped down dead because this coagulability takes the blood clot in the heart and results in a heart attack. So on day one onwards, ecosprin should be given. There are those who now suggest that low molecular weight heparin should be instituted. There are those who say, will it not cause bleeding? And those who give it say, what is the matter? Can't you understand that is bleeding of concern or death also concern? Whereas all those who have been given an antiplatelet drug 80% of potential deaths have been avoided. Now, apart from that, we now have this particular doctor from America. What did I say? The mucus secretion becomes too thick. They cannot expectorate it out. So as a consequence, it must be lysed. And therefore, the airway should be widened. And this doctor said, nebulize them with budesonide if they become breathless or the oxygen saturation starts going less than 93. And finally, all of this should be given for 5 days. Now, the number of patients who have come into Bangalore Medical College, full-blown corona, they have done an RT-PCR, a test designed by this fantastic guy called Karen Mullis. He said it should not be used for diagnostic purposes, only for research. But then we, as you know, we will take a test and quickly sort of an RT-PCR, and many patients in Manipal, he had a full-blown corona symptom, and as a consequence, they did an RT-PCR. They found it to be negative. He said it's a flu. By the third, fourth day, suddenly he started deteriorating, ICU, and eventually death happened. No more. So all of this should be given for 5 days. I guarantee, because I've given it for countless patients across India, I guarantee nobody will. Anybody given this, they have got cured. I repeat again, because it is of absolute crucial importance. Do you find this as a protocol everywhere? Definitely not. We are giving a whole host of drugs which are absolutely rubbish. Again, let us come back again. Ivermectin 12 milligram twice a day, doxycycline 100 milligram twice a day, N-acetylcysteine 600 milligram twice a day, 1 daily of ecosprin, and if they become breathless or the oxygen starts deteriorating, budesonide nebulization, all for 5 days. Now, this person from Mumbai who's giving this treatment, he says just 2 days is enough. How many patients he has treated by this? Just 2 days. Ivermectin 12 milligram, 2 days. Third day, they're asymptomatic. Fifth day, they're negative. So anyhow, come back again. I insist that all be given for 5 days, because is there any side effect? Any side effect in any of these drugs? Absolutely not. But I get terribly irritated when patients come, is there any side effect, doctor? I said, you're concerned about side effect, you go die. Because now these fellows consult to Google doctor and read a whole host of rubbish and then come and ask, is there any side effect? I said, you please avoid me and go elsewhere. Now, these are fellows who should be, patients should stop asking doctors unnecessary nasty questions, because when death is waiting at the door, this is a combination 100% will save lives. Now, look at this guy, Professor Thomas Borody. He is the director for the Center for Disease Center. He is the one who pioneered the treatment for acidity. How many people died as a consequence of acidity? And we did GJ vagotomy, we did this thing and that, and all sorts of antacids and a whole tons of drugs. But he said acidity is because of one bacteria, Campylobacter pylori. Who discovered that? There will be a Viva question, I suppose, for medicine PGs when they come in. Who discovered that? Australia's Center for Digestive Diseases Director, Professor Thomas Borody. And he said, all that you need to do is just clear those bacteria, Campylobacter pylori, and give it for 6 days. It's called a pylo kit, and all of them are cured for life. What a wonder. Now, he said ivermectin is the miracle drug that should be given. And he said, and they're all cured. You see, what did he say? This triple therapy, ivermectin, doxycycline, and zinc, cured all those whom I treated. And what did he find? Within 48 hours, their cough had gone down, fever decreased, oxygen level significantly improved. Thomas Borody, what a wonder. Many states and countries have adopted it. They have been able to absolutely lock this scourge to a large extent. The flare of the viruses is going down. But as you know, there are vested interests, fellows like WHO who have no clue, a bunch of fellows who are sitting in an office who have no idea, and they are trying to block this. How sad things can be. When we have a miracle drug like this, 100% guaranteed to be safe and can save a life, there are still people trying to suppress it. That is a terrible tragedy of medicine. Now, what did he say? With ivermectin and zinc, when they are combined, it kills the reproductive cycle when multiplication occurs. And virtually everybody gets cured. You see that? His words. It is so simple. And in 10 days, they are unheard of any side effects. What a miracle combination we have. So the moment you come across either in your family, your parents or kith and kin or those who are supporting you, loved ones, and the moment you come across a corona positive, straight start no
Less than 10 channel, but it's just falling in the right side, but current in the right side. So that is
Can you please mute your mics, please? Stock it in the house, because by chance suddenly because you go to the town, come back, you have just a half an hour window period, frequently sip hot water. You've not done that. By evening, fever sets in, and at that time, these medical shops would have been closed, and drugs would not be available. By morning, you're serious. That can happen. So I insist on people talking this. How much it costs? 300, 400 rupees. By chance, you become seriously sick and you are pushed into the ICU. What does the bill come to? 5 to 10 lakhs. So therefore, beware, be warned, be cautious. Talk all this. I will repeat that because quite often, people break my presentation and ask again, can you please repeat again? I repeat very clearly, this will save lives. What are they? Ivermectin 12 milligram twice a day, doxycycline twice a day, N-acetylcysteine, mucotab or mucorin, and ecosprin, budesonide, only if they are breathless. 100% patients should be cured. What are we talking about of 2 lakh patients getting tested positive? What are we talking about 2 to 3 to 4,000 deaths in a day? No, this is unpardonable. Is there any proper specific health advisory that will tell the medical fraternity that this is the way to every MCI, NMC, and a whole bunch of others, or the so-called ICMR, they have no clue, nor will they form an advisory committee. So that is a sad fact of how things are. So therefore, we'll go on to this wonderful person, Professor Thomas Borodi. It is his protocol. Countless lives are being saved, not a single death. Now we'll leave it there and go on to what is they call, how do you, it is not only what is the body waiting for, it is waiting and craving to start and fight. If the police people are all helpless, how sad it is. The police come, for example, in a town like in Mumbai when that happened, they were helpless. Did they have fully automatic machine guns with silver tipped bullets? Did they have a full bulletproof vest covering them? Even police chiefs have got shot dead. So the body also wants to sort of start fighting. Let us see what can be done to give the body a fighting chance. Amino acids, vitamin C, iron, zinc, prebiotics, all give it twice a day. Now I have had patients suffering from pyrexia of unknown origin. 10 days of high fever, nothing happens. Then they do all sorts of tests, nothing is there. And then because they think it's a sinus thing and they come to me, or I've seen the patient relatives come and say, doctor, 10, 11, 12 days high fever, all I give is just a combination of iron and zinc. I say, if my science is right, I am giving the body a fighting chance to fight back. In 24 hours, the fever will subside. What a miracle it is. 24 hours, you just give iron and zinc for a pyrexia of unknown origin, like a magic it will work. We would have done all sorts of tests, found them to be negative, high fever. Why high fever? Somewhere a bunch of terrorists called viruses have gotten, and the body wants it to not multiply. It will bring in high fever, and then it waits for a chance to fight. What to fight? What does it require? Iron and zinc. The moment you give that, it takes them, fills their armory, and straight starts attacking. Zinc is a miracle magic, and straight ahead, and by 24 hours, the fever has disappeared. So many cases. So again, these have to be given twice a day, start immediately. By 10 days, they are all absolutely normal. Now, apart from the protocol for treating the virus, I also immune enhancement treatment, and by second, third day, however serious they have all improved, come out and gone on. Now, should we add an antihistamine, Phenergan, 25 milligram, one twice? If we do this, then we'll try. Can you please mute your mic? I wish Zoom would have an option in which I will automatically mute all mics. Dr. Shruti is there with the mic open. Nisha Thomas there with the mic on. And then Vinod again with the mic. Please make sure that your mics are muted when you're coming in. And if those who are not registered go to the streaming YouTube channel, you can see that nicely. But if there are those who have found it difficult to come for this, then it means, there are 3 types of students. Those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, those who wonder what's happening, or those who say, I'm not interested at all. So once you're in a medical institution, you better be good, be at the cutting edge of knowledge. And if you find it difficult to come for any teaching program organized in a college, you should take advantage of it and then come in and log in, register, imbibe this knowledge. Why this is something that I will do it on a paid basis for outside colleges. How many students across India? But inside, when we are doing it free, don't take things easy. Make sure. But those of you who are not there, I insist that please come and meet me. Let's have a chat. So again, the problem is if a person is pushed into the ICU, there is nothing you can intervene. I have found it really difficult to talk to the intensivist or the internal medicine doctor. Simply, they will not accept. And eventually, by not accepting, finally, patients whom I know have died. Now I understand the violence of the public mob when they thrash a doctor, in spite of requesting, begging, pleading. My classmate who is inside the ICU, I said, this is something that will save his life. I request you, I take on the full responsibility. These fellows have refused to accept it. My classmate is dead and gone. Should I go and thrash these fellows? Well, that's another day. We'll come back again. So therefore, should you be pushed into the ICU? Should we or should we not? We'll just keep it there. And because it's a hypercoagulability state, aspirin must be. Of course, there are a lot of wonderful things about the aspirin. There's a lot of negative things as well. But then we should be giving every single patient, because of this possibility of a sudden clot happening, aspirin should be given from day one onwards. Now, let us look at brilliant people around planet Earth. They are God's gift to mankind, and we deify them. They are the ones to whom we will pay our obeisance to. Dr. Chetty from South Africa, highly qualified, but apart from that, he is a fantastic researcher, and he properly, systematically evaluates. He looked at the timeline. He said, no, something is wrong. Because if you were to be infected, for example, if you get a typhoid fever, you become more and more and more serious from day one onwards, or any other illness for that matter. But here, till the 7th day, they're all normal. To a large extent, they will improve. But it is exactly on the 8th day. We never realized that there is a timeline and there is an 8th day. But Chetty said 8th day, suddenly they will deteriorate and die. So he brought out this thing called the 8th day therapy. Where in the world, in India, people are yet to wake up to this thing, 8th day. He said, why does this happen on the 8th day? Because of a hypersensitivity reaction. Understand, listen and carefully imbibe. It is a hypersensitivity reaction. The body has to fragments of the virus. And suddenly when we have like for example, if you're allergic to a vaccine, yesterday we had the first confirmed accepted vaccine death. The government has said, yes, this death was because of the vaccine. Now, is that a risk you can take? I don't know. But it is a hypersensitivity reaction against viral particles. And then what happens in a hypersensitivity? It is because from the tissues called histose, this thing gets released. What is it released? Histamine. And what do? We block histamine in a hypersensitivity reaction. So he said every single patient starting to deteriorate from the 8th day, he gave an antihistamine. That's all he did. An antihistamine. Initially, we had the first generation that also act on the H1 receptor in the brain. So when you had a very bad cold and you took an antihistamine, you felt drowsy and sluggish. But however, nevertheless, he said everybody was given an antihistamine. Or you can come to the second generation, which does not affect the brain, only the lung. And as a consequence, the H1 receptor blocker for the lung. And Chetty found that 100% of the patients who he has treated, no other drug, only this, not a single death. Sometimes there is terrible diarrhea. And in that case, he said because the H2 receptor blocker which are being activated in the intestine. What can you give? Famotidine, which is an H2 receptor blocker. That's all that he did. What a wonder miracle. Phenergan, 25 milligrams. That's why I put that in the initial treatment. From day one onwards, thrice a day. Or if it is not, was specifically to an H1 receptor second generation, only acting on the lung from day one. Don't wait for the 8th day. Is there any harm? Absolutely not. But start from day one, an H1 receptor, this 8th day deterioration will not happen. More than 4,000 cases treated by Dr. Chetty, not a single death. Now we leave that there and then come to another fantastic. Now again, the 8th day, what is it? It's a hypersensitivity reaction, H1 receptor blocker, Phenergan or cetirizine. And then if the intestinal symptoms are manifesting, famotidine. That's all that you need to intervene. Now, why does suddenly this thing, so much of noise in the paper called a cytokine storm? What can arrest a cytokine storm is this miracle injection. How many injections should we give? Just one, where only subcutaneous. It is pegylated interferon alpha 2b, and that is marketed as PEGI-HEP. There's another same thing by Dr. Reddy, is called Virafin. Again, how much does it cost? 400 rupees. How many should we be giving? Only one injection. Subcutaneous, that too. Instantly, 100% the cytokine storm will be blocked. And so many patients across India, I have given this through doctors who have been kind enough to accept it all. However, even though the oxygen is at 70, they have come out of it. Those individuals, for example, in my classmate's case, I begged that this drug be given. They refused to do that. And the second day, he died. There are patients whom doctors have refused to give it because they said, we have no clue. If you're treating a patient in any disease, you should be 100% knowledgeable about cutting edge knowledge, about emerging techniques. If you're not willing to imbibe that knowledge, or if you're not knowledgeable enough, leave it. Let somebody else who are capable enough handle it. But look at how many people have died for the want of just this one injection, pegylated interferon alpha 2b, to be given subcutaneously. Even at the other day, I got a call from Coimbatore. They said their mother-in-law is in the ICU with a sinking patient, 70 oxygen. Still, I said, somehow get the injection and give it. Gradually, they think she reverted by morning. She was normal. You see the miracle that is possible. No, we should accept the fantastic, miraculous treatments that we have and take advantage of it and institute it instead of complacent and saying, I have no idea. But I really appreciate Karnataka government, because the Karnataka government has issued an advisory that pegylated interferon alpha 2b should be considered, because to a large extent it will save lives. Nevertheless, how many patients have you seen? I asked the medical shop, how many doctor we have stocked 1 or 2 injections? So far, nobody seems to have bought it. That is a sad tragedy of how things are. Are still patients dying in Mangalore? They still are. So please understand and realize this miracle life-saving injection is available. And if you find that slight, moderately severe, straight give it 100%. They have the potential of saving. Now we leave that there. Kirti, your mic is unmuted. Henceforth, 100 rupee fine. Anybody logging in should mute their mics, please. May I request Dr. Kirti to please mute your mic? Otherwise, you're interrupting this program. Now, look at this fabulous, fantastic God on earth. I'll tell you, some doctors are gods on earth, because look at this guy, Taban, from Nigeria, Sudan, extreme, terrible sufferings. He walked all the way because of so much of riots there. Reached finally South Africa, where he enrolled in a medical school, became a doctor, and on top of that, he became a pulmonologist. Now, what do we do when patients, oh my God, we did a CT and we find patchy this thing? We said ground glass opacity, we said Corad rating of this, and we try to do all sorts of. But Taban said, listen, I'm a pulmonologist. Instead of looking from outside, let us directly go inside and have a look. What was the shocking thing that he discovered? Who is this guy, Dr. Taban? God's gift to mankind, I tell you. Because he said, as a pulmonologist, Emmanuel Taban went inside, and to his shock, he discovered that these are patients who have thick mucus plugs blocking the alveoli. Did any one of us ever have the mind or the thought to do it? He went inside, and of course, completely protected, and then went inside, thick plugs. Now, can you understand, when these thick plugs are there, on top of that, you fit a ventilator and try to push oxygen. This is what is preventing the oxygenation. And on top of that, 96% of patients who are put on a ventilator in Bangalore Medical College have died. Is the ventilator a killing machine? When I see these deaths happening, sometimes I say it is. This is what we should have understood. It's a thick mucus plug which is blocking. Now, what did he say? No, I will go inside. He caught these mucus plugs and removed it. Listen, if you were to attach a ventilator to a patient like this, which is already filled with thick mucus plugs, secretions which are thick and viscid, and you attach a ventilator, what benefit is it going to be? What this patient requires is the oxygen to go inside. So he went inside, pulled out. You have to pull it because it is so thick. He pulled out these mucus plugs and made it clear all of them survived. What a gift it was. What a miracle it was. Patients touched his feet. They deified him, gave him mementos and gifts. And he said, they said, you are a lifesaver. You see, this sort of thing which is blocking the lungs. And if you try to attach a ventilating machine, what a noise it made. Oh my God, ventilators are not available in America. Millions were manufactured and sent. And all large attaching to a ventilator, eventually they will die because you're not able to push oxygen. The basic rationale of all this, we should understand. And he went inside, pulled out, flushed the lungs, made it clear, and as a consequence, made these bronchus and alveoli like this. All of them survived. Initially, his own medical authorities tried to block him. Naturally, if somebody with a new idea, there will be enough people to block you. He broke through. He said, if you're going to take away my license, that is so be it. I will go work as a cafeteria guy or something, but I will not hesitate to save lives, even if it's at the expense of my medical degree. Today, he is a celebrity around the world and considered in major discussions about corona. What a wonder. Now, we leave it there. Look at Richard Bartlett. I said, a doctor from America. What did he do? This thick mucus, he did not have the expertise to pull out these mucus plugs. What he did is he dilated the lungs, alveoli, and he gave a drug that made the viscous secretion a little more fluid. What did he give? He gave again nebulizer inhalation. Again, he shot up into the news around the world for medical treatments. He became considered as a godly word. What did he claim? 100% survival rate for patients given the steroid budesonide. Vineron, suddenly it might not be available. So I ask now people to buy a nebulizer, buy this one bottle of budesonide, keep it there. By chance things go wrong, this is life-saving. So Richard Bartlett. Now, a whole lot of noise happened. I did not agree from the very beginning when people said, oh, they have come out of corona, we can use their plasma to save other lives. Instead of waiting for all that, I said, why don't you simply enhance their immune system? But then people swore by it. Lives, they said, but what all havoc happened? People started selling plasma. They said, if you want my plasma, then you pay upfront by money, then they'll switch off their phone. What amount of mockery happened? And I said, it's all wrong. Today, of course, it is withdrawn. The first patient given convalescent plasma in Bangalore Medical College died. But that came as a government advisory, and as a consequence, they were all protected. Now, this treatment has been withdrawn. What a noise, Remdesivir. The moment I saw Remdesivir, I said, absolute nonsense. Why? Because they said, can you mute your mic, please? How many times do I have to request? They said Remdesivir prolongs death from the 6th to the 8th day. Just for the 2 days of prolonged death, this highly expensive drug, they pushed it like anything. The WHO recommended it. And what noise happened in Bangalore? People started selling fake Remdesivir. They started selling it with a premium. What rubbish. It is so sad, this human behavior to make money the moment there is an opportunity. It is so sad things happen like this. But then today it is withdrawn, not to be used anymore. So much so even favipiravir also is gone. But however, neutralizing antibody has a role, and this is what was immediately given. It completely blocks the spikes on the coronavirus and immediately say by half an hour they start improving. What is this fabulous wonder drug? Which company? Regeneron. And what is this? Casirivimab and imdevimab. It's a combination to be given. How much does it cost? 75,000 to about 1 lakh. Can the large majority afford it? No. We have far more simpler drugs, but this is now undergoing major trials in India, especially in Hyderabad, where they say all those who are at the outset are given this within 45 minutes to about an hour, 2 hours, they all come out of it. So, however, when there's an emergency, how many suddenly you say you go buy that drug 1 lakh worth, and how many can afford? So, casirivimab and imdevimab are an antibody cocktail produced by a Roche company directed against the spike protein. They block virus attachment and subsequent entry and save lives. So look at when President Trump was given, by the next day he improved, and of course he showed off by driving in his car, and it creates a lot of noise. So therefore, that's how it is. 2-deoxyglucose made a lot of noise by the Defense Research Organization, DRDO, and they said it gives a false oxygen into the virus, and well, it is yet to sort of make any major impact. If 3,000-4,000 deaths are happening, it means they have still not got a grip on this particular drug. I hope it will have the impact which it initially had when it was released to the market. Now, vaccine. The major problem with vaccine is it is not recognized by the WHO, I believe, what is being given in India, And if you have an idea to go abroad, UK, USA, you will not get your flight ticket because the vaccine is not yet got approved. And the WHO has its own list of approved vaccines. You've got to specify. If you're planning to go abroad, that is a problem. Second, today we know some people, quite a number, are having myocarditis. People, after that, they say, oh, I'm healthy and go on a treadmill. Suddenly they have dropped down dead. The vaccine has now blood clotting as a side effect. Many people have had side effects. There's a doctor in my hometown. After the second dose of vaccine, suddenly he dropped down dead. Yesterday, the first vaccine accepted, recognized death has happened and the government has accepted. So, well, that is the decision that you got to make. Many people ask me, sort of, should we take a vaccine? Which vaccine? It's all your choice. Well, in my case, everybody in my college, wonderful, the way they sort of organize, really so fantastic. But then somehow the first vaccine in KMC for tonsil, they call it the so-called tonsil vaccine for chronic resistant middle ear infection. I created for the first time a Pseudomonas vaccine. We also created a vaccine against cancer recurrences. Not a single recurrence happened. But then there are several other problems that I faced. And unless my identification of the dominant colony is not specific, the vaccine simply will not work. Or if your immune system is not good enough to mount an immune defense, again, it was pointless. So consequently, personally, I have not taken a vaccine. Many people have, including my mother, said, what madness. But that is my take. You take an individual decision whether you want to take the vaccine or not. Now, in that regard, I've seen interns, postgraduates, they're all so happy and so much of mirth and happiness in the various lounge, cafeteria, or all that. But then if one person is positive, then he becomes a super spreader. He might be RT-PCR negative. Still, millions are being poured out. And this company has come out with this gadget, this device called Corona Guard. They claim 99.9% of the virus are killed, not a single. And everywhere where they have installed this, as a consequence of, they say, because of proximity, people got positive. But everywhere they've installed, they've been doing intensive field studies. There's been not a single positive case. Now, in a boardroom, wherever you gather, if this sort of thing is installed, then to a large extent, that people in that area are protected. And secondly, it is now felt, I was to conduct an interview for doctor recruitment for the MRPL. And they said, ask this person who came in as the candidate, he just opened the door and came in and sat in front of us. Although he was wearing a mask, I said, you did not observe what could have been done to, if suppose you yourself might have got infected, how the virus stays on surfaces for hours together. The only surface, be very clear, that kills a virus is copper or a brass. And in major institutions in America, in offices, all the door handles, all the lifts, they all are being replaced by copper, because I believe the moment the virus touches a copper surface, it will die. Well, here, of course, we can't afford that sort of a thing. You got to be very careful. So that is this thing by BBC, it got reported, the surfaces that kill bacteria and viruses, copper. But otherwise, many patients in Bangalore said, we never even went out, doctor. Still, we became positive. I said, did you observe the grocery fellow or the fish fellow who brings in and gives it to you? He may be a carrier, or the product he may be keeping on your steps, and you may be waiting for 2-3 hours. Nothing. It doesn't make sense. It still will be flushed with viruses. Believe me, we need to have that focus and awareness, because look at all these people, elderly people living in flats in Bangalore, still they became positive, and lakhs had to be spent the moment they went into the ICU. Well, there is this device. Of course, I said I do not have any financial interest, but since this is there, you must also have an idea that these things are there. Activa Solarix. You can completely clear any surface in 10 seconds, 99.9% of viruses. If you are any doubt, this grocery fellow has gotten, just scan it for about 10 seconds, it will almost be sterile. So that's how it is. Look at this, there's a marriage and 100 people became positive. In the bride's father died. So it is so sad when things happen. They still have this madness of calling everybody and breaking social norms. And why? It ultimately, finally, by chance, God forbid, the boy and girl starts fighting. Will anybody who comes for a marriage to protect or to sing? And so therefore, let it be a small event. Girl, boy, parents, and one priest, and maybe a witness to sign the registry. The rest can sit at home and observe. I've witnessed a few marriages all at home via Zoom or YouTube streaming. So nice it is. So therefore, as far as possible, so many marriage invitations I got, but I did not go. Of course, you got to take that protection, because ultimately, what this rubbish about only 50 people can gather, or only 50% of the people in an industry can work, 50% out of which one is positive, everybody will get infected. So therefore, you are at highly vulnerable and risky. If your immune system is not adequate enough, why? Look at my first interview. What did I say? You should have adequate amino acids. At that time, of course, the medical problems of I said amino acids from sprouted grains, vitamin C from fresh lime, iron from black raisins and black grapes, zinc from papaya and watermelon seeds, and then hot water and little amount of probiotic. The world started this. I got calls from America, from Australia, from Nigeria, from many countries in sub-Saharan Africa, from Sudan. And where do we so people started on all that happened? You see Dr. Devan and COVID or Corona, you can find all that. But today I do not recommend, because how much of amino acids that you require in the essential form, you may not get enough. So I always say take these supplements, they're pure, and especially if it's an ISO company, you can rest assured of their quality. So that's how it is. Every single day is a gift, which is why we call it the present. Yesterday is a cancelled check. Tomorrow is a promissory note. Today is a gift. Use it wisely. Be very careful, because look at that guy waiting for his chance with the lasso. One wrong step and you are just pulled in, and anything can happen. Death can sort of, how many people have died? It is such a terrible thing. We only need to see that now they say the Indian variant is called, because they did not want to humiliate India, they said the Delta strain. But now they say it is called the Delta Plus, far more vicious than the original Delta. And that might be the possibility for the third wave. And it vastly affects the younger. It is as if somebody is sitting and tweaking this virus to make it far more and more virulent. But then many people ask me, when will Corona go, doctor? Corona will go when humans become humane. If you are Mother Earth, the way the earth is plundered, the way wildlife is being killed for the pure joy of killing, the way forests are being plundered and the earth is ripped apart for mining, and the oceans are getting polluted. And if that is so, if you are Mother Earth, will you send a virus to finish off this evil thing called humankind? You will. So I said, virus will go when humans become humane. In spite of all that, how many of evil we still see people trying to make money by selling oxygen? The hospital oxygen is not available. You buy an external cylinder, 40,000 will cost, half for me, half for you. What a great tragedy. I know I should be a little careful when I talk, but then these are things I simply cannot tolerate. Or you want remdesivir? Of course, the black market is available, 45,000 rupees. What a tragedy it is. So therefore, I was saying that who are the actual viruses, the terrible viruses, vicious and violent viruses on planet Earth? They are humans. And the Earth has sent a vaccine in the form of a virus to finish this off. Look at all the animals. They live in such harmony. Look at elephants, tigers, giraffes, and all animals. Unless they are really starving, they will kill and eat. But otherwise, they live in such harmony. They help each other. They are caring, compassionate, God's blessing. So as a consequence, the large majority seems to be happy that the humans have all disappeared inside. Earlier, we kept them inside cages and we were happy. Now we are all inside cages, then they are happy roaming the earth. Now, in every presentation, who are the people who are looking after you, your own parents or those who are looking after a few words of, because people seem not to know at all why so many I've seen, when suddenly the parents will have a heart attack and die. Now, what is that? Where were heart attacks 40 years back? Absolutely unknown. Today, there are enough number of cardiac centers because cardiac is big business. Now, why did earlier we not even hear about pyridoxine prevents platelets from clumping? And as a consequence, if you had daily intake of pyridoxine in the form of the original red hand-milled rice, to a large extent, the blood will remain fluid and heart attack. One doctor gave B complex in his county for 2 years' time. In 2 years, there were not a single heart attack. Today, we have even seen the endothelial thickening has even reverted back. Now we have what is called an executive checkup. At the end of it, finally, oh, everything is okay, doctor, and bye-bye. On the way, they will have a sudden cardiac death, SCD. Why that happens? Because the wiring is faulty. What can prevent it? Omega-3, docosahexaenoic, icosapentaenoic, and arachidonic acid. So to your own parents, give them daily a B complex. Is there any problem? No, it's water soluble. and for 72 hours they will remain protected. Why 72 hours? Why? Because when you give B complex, what does it decrease? It decreases homocysteine. Hyperhomocystinemia is a highly risky condition when potential heart attacks can happen. Give them a B complex to a large extent. Did it have any other benefit? Yes. Look at the number of college boys and girls who have a premature hair graying. And that also, where does the original red hand, how much is the B complex intake now? But come back again, protect your own parents by a B complex and an omega-3, which is to be given at least once a week. We are shortly launching what is called a heart health program, 500 rupees registration. Of course, I should not talk about commerce, but if at the moment I have told this to patients, immediately countless people have said, please, when are you starting? Let us know. So to a large extent, if you do that, 80, 90 will be a common age to which you can live. So that's about heart attacks. I've seen my children's classmates, mothers, how many have had a breast cancer, ovarian cancer, it's become quite common. What can prevent it? Or what is calcium? Calcium, the miracle mineral. Number one, it makes the body alkaline, in which cancer cannot grow. On top of that, look at this. Dietary calcium and vitamin D were found to lower breast cancer risk in a cancer prevention study reported by researchers. So many cancers now, there are so many cancer hospitals in Mangalore, while calcium, at least one a day, will it cause kidney stones? No, absolutely not. Isn't that the amount of calcium that you should be taking? Of course, yes. And therefore, calcium is the other thing. Yeah, because when my children, I used to go to where the fish was brought in, not a single fish with cancer. Why? Primarily because they are in an alkaline medium. So we started a departmental study and a research project. We just looked at salivary pH of cancer patients. 192 cancer patients later, we did not find a single cancer patient with an alkali saliva. You have what is called a master checkup. Isn't that what you did earlier? You put a dipstick or what is called a hygrometer inside in a battery and then looked at, is the battery acidic? If it is acidic, the terminals will corrode. If your body is acidic, how badly it will hit your bone and various other organs. But do we ever master executive checkup costing 6,000 rupees? Have they checked for alkalinity by looking at the salivary pH costing 50 paisa? We have not done. So if you look at highly alkaline areas of the world, number one, the Hunza Valley in Pakistan, the Honshu Island of Japan, the Hopi Indians, where the water is highly alkaline, not a single case of cancer. Now, the other day, I had this patient come to me and I said, doctor, just feel that on the side of my flank, there's a small little swelling. When I touched it, it was a little hard. And I said, why don't we do an FNAC? Came back as metastatic grade 4 cancer, metastatic at a 65-year-old man. And of course, he said, no, I can't go through. I just want to die, doctor. But then people in the know of him, he was sent to Manipal in the Ayurvedic section where they fed him farm-bred cow's urine. I said, what is this? Farm-bred cow's urine. Third month, and of course, they had done a scan and found that it has spread throughout his body. By the third month, all that started shrinking, everything disappeared. This doctor from Kasaragod treated esophageal cancer, just cow's urine, third month, everything disappeared. Because cancer is like an alien being. And for it to survive, it will alter biochemical processes and makes the body highly acidic. Now, at the moment it is highly alkaline, you please see that movie called Alien, in which the moment it is highly alkaline, it suffocates and dies. What is the unique thing about cancer? Of course, this article called O to be a cancer cell, because cancer has got, every cell has got what is called a telomerase, and as it multiplies, telomerase shrinks. But a cancer, it will never shrink. As long as the host is healthy enough, it will continue to thrive and multiply. And therefore, a cancer cell is one that has achieved immortality. So again, come back again, make sure that you're alkaline, make sure, especially for your parents, give a calcium every day to your mothers, because the moment a breast cancer or uterine cancer, something happens, so much terrible suffering and misery and death. So how many people we have come across? Anyhow, that's about cancer. There is an epidemic of prostate cancer, which today we know can be prevented by lycopene, which is present in the skin of raw tomato. So at least for your own parents, fathers, ask them to take 3 or 4 slices of lycopene or raw tomato. A few of the breakthroughs that we have done, I was grotesquely obese like this. Everything I tried, 20,000 I think I paid to Salvakars, and morning jogging, walking, dieting, nothing. It's all bogus. Just fat. Let me tell you. So everything I failed. And then I realized, you look at so many slim people, they say, oh, it's our God's gift. It's our constitution. Nonsense. slim people are slim because they are colonized, be very clear, by one specific strain of bacteria. They are called bacteroids. I looked at the emerging knowledge about it, found out that it was manufactured by one company in Norway and Denmark, and then through Glaxo sourced it to India, got it into Mangalore. I myself swallowed. Many people ask me, are you mad to swallow live bacteria? Well, look at how miserable my life is at those days. I took it for 5.5 months, 35 kilos disappeared, and here I am. No exercise, no dieting. So those of you who are interested in slimming down, well, this is possible. But then you got to be the very best. Is this my territory, ENT? No, why should we, when we look at head and neck surgery, we say head and neck. Why can't we look at cosmetics as well? So many patients nowadays become like an epidemic of male pattern baldness. But we have absolutely broken the code for trichology. The world science of trichology is dead. What can you maximally do? Take the hair here, put it on top, it's all rubbish. Now maybe you can inject something and all that, but the science of trichology, be the best. By the time you're 45, you must be the best in the world. The world should come to you. And ultimately, we broke that. Look at him. 3 months later, all that hair has started coming back. This particular girl, 10 doctors in Bangalore saw her and they said, who will marry her? Who will give her a job? And they were trying to sort of maybe wear a wig or something. But having broken that code, they identified exactly the factors that govern hair growth. And here she is. Model and on a catwalk, and now be the best in the world. So once you've broken that code, the world will come rushing to you. That's how good you should be. Well, various other areas which were, how did I, in a few months, we were the #1 ENT department compared to 6 medical colleges, because absolutely the code for migraine, we have broken. Any migraine, we will now cure it. We broke the code for benign personal as well as Meniere's disease, vertigo, diabetes. All diabetes are cured. Sciatica as a consequence of disc prolapse. We can now, you look at our own, our bus driver, AJ bus driver, bedridden with sciatica. And of course, they asked him for laminectomy, I suppose. But then somehow he finally came to me in 2 months. That is about 9 weeks, completely cured. Now he's running around. So that's how it is. That is how you should be. How did I make these breakthroughs? You must absolutely focus on something to the exclusion of all else. Think, dream, day and night, like Watson and Crick, somewhere from the subconscious of your universe, the answer will come. What did Watson get? A dream of a snake catching its own tail and then twirling, and then he realized this is how the DNA helix is. You got to be thinking day and night. I used to think about autoconia, which are tiny crystals locked in the inner ear. Somehow the cementing matrix is gone, and then they start circulating in the inner ear and cause terrible positional vertigo. What can we do? We can go inside, operate, and block these semicircular canals. But then let us have a look at the matrix and discover a way to absolutely format it. Any benign postal vertigo, 100% we will cure it. So that's how it is. Now you should tell the world you're doing it. Sometimes rubbish nonsense happens and say you can't advertise. They say you should be known by a word of mouth. Today you don't even know who your neighbor is. You don't have speak up, and we are trying to go to the Mars, but you don't even know who your neighbor is. That is the communication now that exists in society. Anyhow, making a website does not make any sense because it is submerged by thousands of other websites. If you look at very carefully on a search engine, the third result is a YouTube channel. So I put all my discoveries on YouTube. How many patients come across from India and the world? People come from Australia, from Canada, from America, from New Zealand, from across the Gulf countries. Because I said, be the best, have a solution where none exists. The world will make a beaten path to your door. There's all the various things, and I put that in that channel there. And you see, for diabetes, for tenosynovitis, food allergies, sciatica, all are cured. My professor, teacher, he said, cure rarely, comfort often, console always. No, wrong, absolutely. Cure always, console when necessary. And the rare instance where you can give some comfort and care. What did he say? Cure rarely, comfort often, console always. Now I say, to a large extent, most of the illnesses now we can cure. So that's how it is. Be the best in the world. And to an extent, because I'm talking to emerging doctors, few factors that will govern your life. Stay humble. What blocks your path is your ego. So if you have an ego, stay humble. The other day I was an examiner in Periyar Medical College. I said, this girl is not good enough. She has to fail. The moment she got up, she just kept her right hand on her chest. She just bent down, said, thank you, sir, and then got up. And my co-examiner, senior guy, said, look at her humility. I request you to pass her. And he passed. I got a call. I know I should be careful. I got a call from one department and they said, this fellow postgraduate exam time, he's passed a theory, clinical, practical, but he's got an attitude and he cares a damn for his teachers. I said, absolutely fail him. The other day, this girl was walking from another department and the dean was there, the former dean. She just walked past him. He said, look at my state. I'm a dean. What respect she has. I said, I will take care. I straight went to her HOD and I said, I want her failed. Because that is not the master's degree is not taken but given. And first of all, you must have that humility. Humility is a hallmark of greatness. Be humble, be nice, be a nice person, be respectful to your parents and then your teachers. Now, how many, the other day, the faculty members here were saying, the students sometimes have an attitude, how nice and good they become as their first years, as the years evolve, and then the lateral displacement of the corners of their lips diminishes a little bit. By they become a postgraduate, they become so arrogant. Once they become a faculty, my God, they think they are descended from heaven. No, be humble and nice. Why did I realize? My mother said, you know the real meaning of Christianity? He said, let your ego cut it across. Let your ego die on the cross. And that is how from early school days onward, out of 132 of my classmates, have anybody become a professor, HOD, associate dean, chief of medical education? And no, it's not because of any caliber of mine, but just that one thing, humbleness. I've seen undergraduates who are very humble, irrespective of them being average or thing. They have gone to the very top. So stay humble, stay healthy, stay safe, be friendly and respectful to all teachers. Even if you see them outside, go up to them. Who should you really learn from a dog? Because the care and compassion and affection, however distant, just a whiff of you, and he will come bounding and then hug you and slurp you and all that. That is why no wonder a dog spelled backwards becomes God. So be respectful to all. Now, the management, it would be so nice. I would expect that is your prime duty as well. Well, what are students nowadays? They are divided into three categories. Those who make things happen, watch things happen, and sometimes wonder what's happening, or least interest as well. No. Any program, it is a mandatory that you write a detailed feedback of this presentation. If you have a positive suggestion on how it could be improved even further, we welcome that. But at the outset, thank the management, because had they not backed me, and it is on their direction that these things are, how many lives by the urgent institution of these treatment modalities, how many lives saved. So thank the management profusely for sort of helping all this happen. So far, this sort of a thing has not happened here, nor is it happening in any other medical college across India or the world maybe. Is there anybody sort of giving a guided? There will be several other programs. Now that we have got the management's encouragement and support for programs on how to sort of comport as a PG, how to plan your thesis, how to plan your work and work your plan, how effective studying technique, 2 hours a day, or at least 1 hour a day, you could be a walking encyclopedia of knowledge, and how to sort of plan your practice once you start. All that we will organize in due course of time. So write a detailed feedback on my WhatsApp number again, 924-330-1213. I hope we have been streaming this on YouTube. For those who are not able to log in, I hope you've been seeing this on YouTube as well. Well, you come to this world naked and bare. You journey through this world with trouble and care. You go to from here, nobody knows where. But if you do well here, you will do well there. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. If there's any questions, I'm willing to take them. You can directly unmute your mic and ask me and clarify. But otherwise, I would expect a feedback on that WhatsApp page. Thank you. God bless. Good luck. If there's anything, please clarify. In my class on professionalism, I always say the first trait a person should have is to just say 8-letter word, thank you. We have taken so much amount of time, so much of resources have been utilized in.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Say thank you and then
Thank you, sir.
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 Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
if you need to clarify anything, do so now before we close. I expect a detailed feedback from all of you, please. And at the outset, thank the management for all that they have done.